What is up YouTube, JC Games here, and Dragon Ball is easily one of the most iconic animes of all times, inspiring several other popular series like Naruto, Bleach, Hunter x Hunter, and many more. Back when I was a kid, I remember on TV seeing Dragon Ball Z Kai airing, which got me not only into Dragon Ball, but anime as a whole. And during this time, I was also very much into video games, so eventually that connection and my curiosity led me to discovering Dragon Ball games. Which leads me to today's topic, Dragon Ball Z Kakarot. Dragon Ball games are usually fighting games, focusing mostly on the fighting aspect of Dragon Ball. For example, Dragon Ball Z Fighters, Budokai 3, and many more. Kakarot, however, takes a different approach to retelling the Dragon Ball story. Rather than being a fighting game, Kakarot is an open world action RPG where you can fish, train, cook, explore the world, and of course, fight. First, let's talk about all the side stuff like fishing, cooking, etc. When you cook, you can make meals that can give you temporary buffs or permanent stat boosts. You can cook with items you gather while playing the game. Then, once you make a meal, you get a cutscene where your character absolutely devours that thing. Like, fishing is pretty simple. You go to a fishing spot, you start fishing, the fish bites your tail or your fishing rod. You press a button, you throw that dude into the air, you press another button, and bam, you caught a fish. And maybe some items. You can also train in the game, which unlocks special attacks like a Super Kamehameha or a Super Masenko. You do have to pay for it with D medals though, but this was never really a problem in my playthrough. Some attacks do require you to progress in the skill tree to be unlocked, which also isn't much of a problem since you can get Z orbs required to upgrade very easily by just flying around. Also, when you're flying around, you'll come across bases from either the Red Ribbon Army or the Frieza Force, which you can destroy for some items. To be honest, this is something I pretty much completely ignored throughout my playthrough. I just kinda destroyed them when I was flying around and managed to come across one. There's also super villainous enemies scattered throughout the world, which you can defeat for Z orbs or rare items. The more you beat, the tougher they get, and eventually you end up fighting what may be a familiar foe. These enemies were actually pretty fun to fight and provided a good challenge. They actually have like a mini sub-story that progresses as you beat more of these enemies, which is pretty cool, but I'll let you discover that if you decide to play through the game yourself. And finally, gathering the Dragon Balls and summoning Shenron, just like in the anime. There's not much you can wish for though. You can get rare items, a ton of Z orbs or Zenny, or you can bring back the enemies you've killed. Why would you bring back Frieza, Cell, or Boo? That's like saying, I am Shenron. State your wish. Can you please bring back Hitler? What the fuck? I mostly only use the Dragon Balls to bring back old enemies, since you need to in order to complete all the side quests. It did get quite annoying collecting them though, since once you summon Shenron, you have to wait another 20 minutes for the Dragon Balls to reappear again. Overall, these small things are completely optional and not required at all to complete the main story of the game. However, you do need to do them for side quests and some achievements. I think these are cool little things that add to the RPG aspect of the game, and they're definitely a way to explore the lives of the characters of the game. They do get a bit repetitive and boring over time, especially near the end of the game when you've already done these activities several times. In general though, these are a decent addition to the game and it wouldn't be the same experience without them. Next up, we have the community board. Throughout the game, as you progress through the story, you'll pick up things called the soul emblems of some characters. You can put these soul emblems on a community board, which increases the level of that board. There are several boards like the Z Warrior board, cooking board, training board, etc. Every board provides its own benefits to the player. Each emblem has its own stats that show what community it's best for, like Vegeta is probably best for the Z Warrior or the training community. You can also upgrade an emblem's stats by giving them gifts. What's funny is that I never knew this until after I beat the game. So all my emblems were at their lowest level since I didn't even know you can upgrade them, despite the game showing you how to at the beginning of the game. In my opinion, I never really saw the point of the community board. I mean, sure, it's a nice thing to have, but there isn't any reason for it to be there. It never really adds anything to the game, it's just kinda there, you know? When I got soul emblems, I just slapped them on whatever community they're most proficient at and called it a day. I think the fact that it took me until the end of the game to find out that you can upgrade the emblems just shows how unimportant I found them. All in all, the community board is a nice thing to have, but it definitely wasn't something that needed to be added to the game. Now let's move on to the main part of the gameplay, the fighting aspect of Dragon Ball Z Kakarot. The combat in this game seems quite simple, and to an extent, it is. You press the attack button to perform combos and deal damage to your enemy. You also have special attacks to deal extra damage and add to your combos. However, there's a lot more to the combat than it seems. One thing you want to watch out for is your ki, which is what's used to perform special attacks, transform, charge at the enemy, etc. It's important to manage your ki because if it runs out, so does your transformation. And you can't use special attacks or teleport out of sticky situations when needed. You also need to watch out for the enemy's attacks, since they can charge up an attack that will leave you stunned and vulnerable to receive some major damage. And you just want to block or avoid all their attacks in general to make winning the fight easier. Some of the bosses have super special attacks that make the fights a lot more exciting, like when Cell makes several copies of himself, or Boo when he releases this giant energy attack which you have to fly away from. You may also have to change the way you fight depending on the opponent or how many opponents there are. Attacking the enemy for a while makes them stunned, which is not only a great time to deal some major damage, it's also a time where some cool animations play when you perform a super attack. Additionally, attacking a lot can fill up your tension gauge. When this is full and you charge your ki to the max, you can activate the surge effect, which gives you a nice little aura and a boost to all your stats. While having the surge effect, you can perform a super finish, kinda like Dragon Ball Z's Fighter's dramatic finish, which is pretty neat. Another thing in fighting is the items. Some enemies and bosses can be challenging to the point where you just can't keep up with them. That's where the items come in. They can heal you, give you buffs, and things like that. Honestly, they really come in clutch in tough situations. Like when I was fighting Kid Buu with Vegeta, healing items really helped me out in winning that fight. As you can see, the combat system in Dragon Ball Z Kakarot is a lot more complex than it looks, in a good way. The fighting in Dragon Ball Z Kakarot is somewhat simple, yet very fun at the same time. It provides a good challenge, and it's exciting to see what kind of combos you can do with the normal and special attacks. Overall, I found fighting the bosses and normal enemies to be quite enjoyable. The story of Dragon Ball Z Kakarot is like any other Dragon Ball Z game. It retells the story of Goku and friends from the Saiyan saga all the way to the Majin Buu saga. However, I feel like Kakarot focuses on the story a lot more than other Dragon Ball Z games. Most Dragon Ball Z games mainly focus on the fights that happen between the characters. Kakarot focuses on the story a lot more, which really shows that there are nearly 16 hours worth of cutscenes in the game. And let me say, some of the cutscenes in this game are absolutely beautiful. This has to be the best animation I've ever seen in a Dragon Ball game. I mean, you can just tell there was some serious effort put into animating some of these scenes. Like look at Gohan's Super Saiyan 2 transformation. I've never seen it look this good. Who knew years ago when we were first seeing this anime that could look as good as this? As for the actual story, if you're already a Dragon Ball Z fan, you know how good of a story this is. And if you're not a fan, I'd say this is a pretty great way to experience it, though the anime is the best way to experience it. The voice actors also did a great job, which is great because there are some games where the voice acting is questionable to say the least. Along with the story are sub-stories, basically the game's side quests. For the most part, to complete these you're either hunting down items to give to whoever gave you the quest, or you're fighting random enemies to complete the quest. The cool thing about some of these is that they fix plot holes that were in the original series. What I dislike about them though is that they get very repetitive since there are a ton of them and the majority of them are just collecting items or fighting enemies. I do like the dialogue that happens in the sub-stories though, as it adds to what is already an amazing story. All in all, Dragon Ball Z Kakarot is definitely one of the best Dragon Ball games out there. It does an amazing job of retelling the story from Goku's, or should I say Kakarot's, initial bout with Raditz, all the way to the explosive battle against Majin Buu. It also allows you to explore beyond the story and experience Goku and friends' lives outside of all the fighting through several activities and sub-stories. The fighting itself is quite fun and at times quite challenging. The animated cutscenes in this game are out of this world, some of the best animation I've ever seen. It has some downsides like the repetitive sub-stories and some kind of useless activities. But other than that, it's a great game. Even if you weren't a Dragon Ball fan, I'd still recommend it. Though a Dragon Ball fan would definitely enjoy this a lot more than someone who isn't a fan. One thing I wish they did though was include more of the Dragon Ball story, like the first Dragon Ball with Kid Goku, or maybe some more Dragon Ball Super. Hopefully one day they do a game like this including the full Dragon Ball story, but for now, we can only dream. Dragon Ball Z Kakarot was definitely made for the true fans of the series, and as one of those fans, I could say they did a great damn job at doing so. I still won't forgive Toriyama for making Gohan weak though.